of we have entrance fees, donations, subscriptions, all these are receipts, and with this much fund in our hand, we have to do the charity work. To do the charity work, we need some land and building, some office is necessary. For that purpose, in the beginning, you may purchase a land. Maybe at a concessional rate for a charity purpose, people may give you the land at concessional rate, and in that land you are constructing a building. So the cost of land and building may be 1 lakh rupees, let's assume, and you are purchasing the furniture again for some 25,000 rupees. Now office is there, land and building and furniture, everything is ready. Now you start doing the charity work. The total amount of charity work done by this organization is 70,000 rupees. What is the total amount of resources left in our hand? The total here is 2 lakh. Here the total is 2 lakh, and the difference is, this will come to around 1 lakh 95. So 5,000 is the difference. 5,000 by balance carried down. So this is the recent payment account of 2018. Now we'll go to the next year. Recent payment account of 2019. Again, the same headings will be there. Whatever the balance carried down you have in the previous year, it is the closing balance of cash. It will come to the debit side as to balance brought down 5,000 rupees. And in the year 2019 also, you are getting some donations, there will be subscription. Let's assume that there are subscriptions of rupees 50,000, and there will be a donation of $70,000. So total resources we have in the receipts, and along with the opening balance, the total fund you have, the total resources you have is 1,25,000. So whatever you received in the year 2019 in the form of subscription and donations, you are purchasing a motor vehicle, maybe for 50,000, a second hand motor vehicle, and for the purpose of recording the transaction, you may purchase some computer also. The cost of computer may be around 25,000, and with the rest of the amount, you may do the charity work, and for the charity, you may spend around 35,000 rupees. So what is the amount left out? That will be balance carried down. So on the debit side, it will be 125. Here it is 1,10,000. 15,000 is by balance carried down. Since it is a newly started firm, you know that in the first year you have purchased land and building, and you have purchased furniture, and in the second year you have purchased motor vehicle, and you have purchased computer. So these informations are available, but in the textbook or in the examination, you may not get the recent payment account of 2 or 3 years. You are preparing the recent payment account for one particular accounting period only. So this statement will not be given in the examination. So what the information you have? You have the recent payments account where the assets are motor vehicle and computer. So now tell me, how many assets we have in our hand? Only motor vehicle and computer? No, there are assets, but in the recent payment account of 2019 it is not shown. It is shown in the earlier recent payments account. So for this purpose, while preparing income and expenditure account and balance sheet, we need the informations of previous years also. The assets, whatever the assets we have purchased in the previous years, we must have those informations, and whatever the funds we have in the earlier years, we must have that information also. That's why for every recent payments account, there will be additional informations and adjustments. Okay, now let's see how to incorporate the treatment of outstanding or advance items in income and expenditure account. So in the beginning, let's consider any income. We shall consider the amount given as receipt. So how it is treated in income and expenditure account and how it is treated in balance sheet. See, in a particular year, when you look at the recent payments account, you will find an item called subscription. As you know, subscription is the amount received from a member every year. So it is recurring in nature, it's entered in recent payments account. So when an amount of subscription is received, it is entered in recent payments account from the cash book, and you have to write them in the income and expenditure account on the credit side. So this is the item given in the recent payments account. So you are not writing them in the balance sheet. It's only the revenue receipts. Then what are all the normal adjustments which appear in the question? The normal adjustment is outstanding at the end of current year and outstanding subscription at the end of last year. So regarding outstanding, there will be outstanding of current year and there will be outstanding of previous year or last year. And there will be adjustments of advances or prepaid. So advance subscription at the end of current year, there will be advance subscription at the end of last year. You get this information normally from the adjustments. It is the adjustment relating to subscription only one variety, but there will be some 3 or 4 adjustment outstanding of last year, current year, like this. So let's consider the first one. Outstanding at the end of current year, whether it should be added or subtracted from the subscription, because last subscription must be deducted, as we know. But what is the logic behind that? How to understand it? Let's understand it with a small chart. This is the year 2019 and let's call it as current year. This is the previous year or last year, I call it as 2018, and this is the next year 2020. So whatever the outstanding you have relating to the previous year, I'll write it or I'll consider it as the outstanding item at the end of the year. See, this is 2018. So at the end of 2018, what is the outstanding that is related to 2018? and any outstanding of current year, we decide the outstanding at the end of the period. So any outstanding at the end of the period, I'll write it at the end of 2019. So what is the next year? 2020 is the next year. Okay. Now let's see the advances. What are the advances at the end of previous year or last year? I'll write it at the end, advances. And what are the advances for the current year? I'll write it at the end. Now let's see the nature. When there is an outstanding of last year, whether it is related to last year or next year, say for example, you are supposed to receive a subscription of 50,000. You have received 45,000. 5,000 is outstanding or unpaid. Whether it is relating to previous year, unpaid during 2018 or 19. It is unpaid in the year 2018. So, the outstanding at the end of the year, while writing or while calculating the amount or while analyzing the amount, it relates to the previous year. The outstanding of current year, the outstanding at the end of current year, it is relating to the year 2019 only. It is not related to next year, because in this particular year, some of the members, they might not have paid the subscription amount. So it is relating to current year. Okay. Now advances. You are giving the advances in a particular year for next year or previous year. Advance should be always given to the future years, not to the past years. So when you give the advance, it will be used in the next year. So always advances will have a forward look. And advance at the end of current year, it cannot be used in the year 2019. It can be used in the future years or coming years. That's why it has the forward nature. Say outstanding has backward nature and advances, they have forward nature. So with this point in our mind, we shall analyze outstanding of last year is included in this year, whether you should add or subtract. See, whatever you have in this 2019 or current year, you add it. Whatever you have in the next year, you deduct. It does not belong to current year. Whatever you have in the previous year, you deduct, because it is nothing to do with the current year. Only the transactions or outstanding or advances relating to current year only we are considering. Now, outstanding of previous year, it is minus. Outstanding of current year, it is plus. So now let's look at the chart. Outstanding at the end of current year. Outstanding at the end of current year 2019, what you have to do? You have to add. So this will be plus in income and expenditure account. You have to write by subscription while preparing income and expenditure account. While preparing income and expenditure account, you write by subscription plus outstanding of current year. So like this you have to write. Now let's look at the outstanding of last year. The outstanding of last year is added or subtracted? It is subtracted. So minus. Outstanding at the end of last year, it is minus. So the treatment of outstanding items are over. Now let's see the nature of advance items. Advances at the end of current year. The advances at the end of current year, whether they should be added or deducted, it has the forward nature. That's why it will come in the year 2020. So this amount has to be subtracted. And now look at advances at the end of last year. last year's advance, it is utilized in the current year. Any advances relating to the last year or any advances of last year to the current year, they must be added because it relates to the current year. Any items relating to the current year, it must be added. So with this understanding, we have to record the outstanding and advances items in income and expenditure account. Now we have given only the half effect because we have selected the items from the adjustment and all the adjustments has to be entered twice. They have double effect, so you have to enter them in balance sheet also. Now let's see whether we have to write these items on the asset side or liability side. Any outstanding at the end of last year or any outstanding, whether it's related to last year or current year, it is the amount to be received in future or to be paid in future. If this amount is considered as an obligation, consider it as liability. In future, if these amounts are supposed to be received, then consider them as asset. So any outstanding income, outstanding subscription, some of the members might not have paid the subscription amount. So in the next year, you are going to receive them. That's why it must be considered as asset, whether it is relating to previous year or current year. Now look at the advances. When the advances are paid, you are not using that amount in the year in which you have received the amount. You are utilizing it in the next year. So it is your responsibility to keep that amount in your books and you have to spend that in the coming year. So it's your liability. So write them in the liability side. So whether we should enter them in the opening balance sheet or closing balance sheet. Here comes the timing effect. If it is at the end of current year, write them in the current year's balance sheet. If it is at the end of last year, enter them in the last year's balance sheet. Here also, advances, if it is for the current year, write them in the current year balance sheet. If it is at the end of last year, enter them in the last year's balance sheet. So this is the brief idea as to how to treat the outstanding subscriptions or advance subscription while working out the problems from not-for-profit organizations. Now let's see how to do the adjustments relating to expenses. There won't be any change while recording the expenses, but only the nature changes. Here instead of income we have written expenses. So here also in the balance sheet the nature changes. Instead of writing assets, you may have to record it as liability. Let's see them one by one. See, outstanding of last year, outstanding of current year, advance of current year, advance of last year, and advance at the end of advance of last year and advance at the current year. So we have discussed about the incomes. Now let's see how to treat the expenses in income and expenditure account and the balance sheet. So instead of income I have written expenses, but there won't be any changes in income and expenditure account. There will be changes in the balance sheet only because the nature of item will change. See, instead of expense we have written, instead of income you have written expenses. In the same way, in the balance sheet, instead of asset you may have to write liability, instead of liability you may have to write asset. Let's see how the effect is made. See, the outstanding of last year or outstanding in the beginning of the year, outstanding at the end of the year, advances at the end of last year, advances at the end of current year. How to treat them? The nature will not change. Now let's analyze the expense like salary. Any outstanding of 2018 or outstanding at the end of the year, it is relating to the previous year, so minus. Any outstanding in the current year, it is relating to the current year only or to the year 2019, so this amount has to be added. So advances of last year, the advances are given for the coming years, not to the previous year. That's why the advances of last year, advances found at the end of last year, it is for the current year. That's why it must be added. So any advances received or any advances shown at the end of current year, it is relating to the next year. It has the forward nature, so you have to deduct it. Now let's look at the treatment. Outstanding at the end of last year. Outstanding at the end of last year, it has to be deducted, so I have written minus. So outstanding during the year or in the year 2019 or in the current year, it has to be added. Advances of last year or advances found at the end of last year, that is relating to the next year. That's why you have to add. And any advances found at the end of current year, it is not related to that year in which it is received. It is relating to the next year. That's why it has to be subtracted. So this is minus. Now let's look at the treatment of these expenses in the balance sheet. Outstanding items. All the outstanding items, they have to be entered on the liability side of balance sheet. What is the logic behind this? Outstanding expenses, for example, salary. You are supposed to pay the salary for the entire year. Say for example 12,000. But you have paid only 11,000 rupees, 11 months salary is paid. 1,000 salary is unpaid or outstanding. Is it not the responsibility of the organization to pay this amount? Is it not the liability of this organization to pay this amount? Yes, it is the liability. So any outstanding expenses, they must be considered as liability. Now look at the advances. The advances are the amounts given for next years. So whenever you pay the expenses in advance, in the coming years you need not pay that amount. To that extent, your responsibility will be reduced. So these advances must be considered as asset. In simple words, for the incomes, the outstandings are assets and advances are liability. And for expenses, the outstandings are liability and advances are assets. So with this basic knowledge, you have to work out the problems on not-for-profit organization.